Okay, class, just like what we discussed from the last week, we're gonna discuss about governance in terms of what MacGregor Burns looks at it. Now, MacGregor Burns is the same guy who coined transformational leadership. Kung naalala nyo kung ano yung transformational leadership, it's leadership based on the premise that we could make our followers into leaders themselves. We as governors can empower other people for them to govern themselves and in the future govern their environment and other people. Okay? The process and structures to which organizations or societies are managed and directed, and it involves decision making. That is governance according to him. And of course, with governance, there's an exercise of power and of compliance to achieve goals. Governance, may utos. Sa governance, may sumusunod din. At hindi lang may nag-utos, may sumusunod, may paraan din kung paano gawin yun. So, effective governance is a balance. A balance with leadership, kung naalala niyo ito, right? The person who leads, someone who manages, someone who governs, right? And there are important elements when it comes to leaderships, particularly ethics, accountability, vision, transparency, and inclusion. Now, they may not happen all, right? All at the same time as we wanted to, but those elements are very important when it comes to leadership. Secondly is systems. Okay, systems is simply how governance happens, which includes the laws that it uses, the mechanics, kung paano ba, the process, and the limitations. And again, with systems, there had to be a strict and implied rule of law, right? A conduct or practice, transparency, to see how the flow, okay, of governance happens, sino bang sumusunod, sino bang hindi, at paano ba na-implement ang batas, efficiency, oversight, and as we move towards the future, data-driven. We could measure it. Anything that you could measure, you can predict, and anything you could predict, you could strategically implement in the future for better. Third element, according to MacGregor Burns, is followership. Siyempre, with followership, who are the governed? What happens if they follow, and what happens if they don't. Now, good governance, among its many concepts, are a balance of the three. Okay, imagine this, right? Governance as the organism, and within an organism, there are systems. Okay, tao ka, at bilang tao, may digestive system ka, may respiratory system ka, may skeletal system ka, and all those things. Now, doesn't mean that one is better than the other, one is more important, but there is a proper check and balance for those things. And if those things happen to work efficiency in unison and in synergy, right, the sum is greater than the parts of the whole. Okay, but before we move on, I want you to understand of a vision of what good governance is, and that's what we did in the last week. Okay, ito yung mga elements that are very important to it. And ang ating initial impressions for good governance, like what we did in the last week. Right? So, good governance is a balance of all. Okay? There is no superimposed importance with leadership, meaning leadership do not have absolute power in all. Kung maalala natin dito sa atin, dito sa Pilipinas, okay, hindi natin binibigay ang buong kapangyarihan sa presidente lang. May check and balance, nandiyan ang legislative, nandiyan ang judiciary, and of course, no system is above all. The law is not above everyone, not above the people they rule upon, not above the people who does use it. Okay? Any rule, any system is only as good as the leader trying to implement it to the followers. And of course, a balance of followers. Kasi kung ang mga followers naman, hindi nasusunod ang well-being nila, everything falls into ruin. And if you look at socialist society, sabi nga ni Marx, in the end, the ruling class will be overthrown by the lower class when the lower class gets fed up. So there's a right balance for everything. It works in unison. The right amount of leadership, the proper system to govern it, and the buy-in, okay, the followership to follow and to self-govern as well. So in this session, we're going to discuss about the theories and principles of governance and social responsibility. All right. Okay, so good governance, as we take it, is the organism, the person. And a person, the organism, is made of organs. And remember, no organ is greater than the other. Well, that at least that's it in principle. Because if one organ fails to function, even though how minimal it may look like, even though that's a spleen, even though that's just your tonsils, if those stop functioning, it affects the entire organism. So we look at it as this way. Good governance is composed of leadership, right? A leader is someone who governs. A system is how governance happens, and followers as they govern. It is important to understand that these three elements are balanced, not a hierarchy necessarily, meaning no part is better than the other. No? Without the followers, there is no leader. Without a leader, there is no system to enact. And without a system, there will be no benefiting followers. Sabi nga nila, the chain is only as good as its weakest link. In this case, the diagram is only as good as its weak side. No? When there's effective leadership and system that allows it to happen, we can call it effective governance, as you could see there. No? That changes followers and behaviors. When there are sustainable systems and followers, there are sustained outcomes even without the intervention of a leader. And when there's shared vision and a mission from its members, that a leader knows when there is a vision, and execution that allows systems to self-correct. When there is balance in all direction, okay, there is a collaborative process that we could call it as good governance. So this is the ideal balance according to McGregor Burns. But as we all know, the ideal does not happen all the time. Of course, there will always be imbalance whether we like it or not, in our country. And we could say in some aspect there are more influence, in some aspect there are less influence. Right, so we look at our first theory, and our first theory is effective governance is the systems theory. Okay, this theory emphasizes that an organization functions as a whole, where leadership must consider the interdependence, right? I mean, interdependence, they could function on their own, but they are still dependent on what the others can do. And if you have two independent bodies, you have interdependence. Sabi nga nila, this is when 1 plus 1 is not equals 2 but is equals to 10. Interdependence of various parts, meaning people, processes, technology, and culture. Sabi nga nila, pag ang isang leader alam niya na hindi siya simula at dulo ng isang proseso, kundi isang mahalagang parte ng sistema para umandar ang lahat, walang bias, walang naiiwan. Lahat makikita ang abag. Ang isa't isa, at importante paano. A leader must ensure that communication channels and decision-making processes, structures work in sync and is in favor for another. For example, a leader's role isn't just to manage individual teams, but to ensure those teams cooperate and align with the organization's overall goal. This coordination is critical for smooth operations and long-term efficiency. Sabi nga nila, one size does not fit all. Alright? A leader must know the right leadership, the right approach for different stakeholders, and that in itself is baked in the system. Sabi nga nila. Right. The next theory that looks at sustained outcomes, the intersect of system and followership, is the path goal theory. The path goal theory of governance simply defines that good governance identifies the path, and when it knows the path, it knows the goal, it knows the start, and it knows the end. But it also identifies the obstacles in the systems and provide necessary resources to support it, ensure followers could achieve success. There's a path, sa madaling salita, and a leader ensures, and the systems ensure that followers could trudge that path, that take on that path without having any bottlenecks as much as possible, but more importantly, when they start, the system allows the followers to finish. So sabi nga, pag ang sistema, no, pinapayagan makita ng bawat mamamayan kung ano ang mapapala nila pag sila ay nagambag, hindi lang sila aasa sa leader. Kung kaya din nila umaksyon para sa ibang kapwa sa pinakamabilis at pinakamadaling paraan para marami silang matulungan. Sabi nga rin sa transformational leadership theory, hindi lang trabaho ng leader ang mag-lead, kundi ang mga followers din ay maging leader para sa mga bagong miyembro ng organisasyon para hindi na sila kailangan umasa pa. Kung ang sistema ay pinapayagan ang mga followers na maging ganun, the good governance could be sustained over time. Sabi nga, a garden grows when many gardeners nurtures it. A garden grows when many gardeners nurtures it. Pwede din natin iasa sa isang tawang garden, pero kung lahat tayo kaya natin mag-ambag, tumulong sa paggawa na itong garden, paano pa kaya ang sistema natin kung binibigyan ng kahalaga ng involvement? Tayo na rin na maging active sa pagbantay ng ating lugar kahit hindi na natin kailangan makita o masabi sa mga taong responsable. Okay, the next theory in good governance is the intersect of vision and execution, right? Where leadership and fellowship intersect vision and execution. One theory that help explain this is the leader-member exchange, right? It asserts that a leader don't treat all followers equally, and followers don't treat leaders the same, but develop unique trust-based relationship with each other. Meaning, a leader knows that each stakeholder contributes to the entire organization, and stakeholders need to know how a leader connects to their interests and to the whole. Okay? Dito sa vision and execution, according to the leader-member exchange, there's a level of exchange that is not always met. It's not always 1:1. It's not always 50-50. Pero alam ng leader na hindi niya parati kayang ibigay ang kailangang ibigay ng mga tao. Pero ang mga mamamayan din, alam din nila yun. So pag ginawa natin yun, may tiwala na nangyayari. Bilang isang leader, di natin kailangan maging favorite din ang lahat. No? Bilang member, di natin kailangan maging favorite din ang leader. Pero naiintindihan natin, right, may trabaho ang bawat isa upang umandar ang sistema. Right? Meaning, may empathy and understanding. Therefore, high-quality relationships are built on mutual respect, trust, and effective communication. And even though sometimes they may not meet our expectation, leading to a better collaboration and a more engaged workforce. Sabi nga nila, a captain doesn't steer the ship alone. Even if the captain steers, if the rudder, the engine, the sail, the radar, and all those parts and all the people who manages don't work, the ship is doomed to fail. Alright. Again, there are many theories that help explain good governance, hindi lang sa tinuro ko, but among the many theories, there are 5 underlying principles common among them. Alright, this time around, we're gonna be talking about principles, just as Group 2 has discussed the 9 principles, if you remember them, kung naalala nyo pa. Yan, yung in-explain nila. So let me narrow down the 9 principles that Group 2 had discussed. It's simply number 1, adaptability, meaning responsiveness. Leaders must adjust their approach based on situational factors, relationships, and evolving challenges. Example na lang dyan, according to the contingency theory, the complexity leadership, and the path goal theory. Collaboration as a principle, meaning participation, consensus-oriented. Effective governance requires shared decision-making, teamwork, and strong leader-follower relationship. Example given, the distributed leadership, the participative learning, and the LMX theory. Empowerment naman, being the third, is equity and inclusiveness, the rule of law, and leaders should support, develop, and enable followers to contribute meaningfully to organizational success, such as the transformational leadership, the servant leadership, and ethical leadership. Systems thinking is strategic vision, effectiveness, and efficiency. Governance depends on understanding and managing interconnectedness structures within an organization. Example given: the systems theory, complexity leadership theory, and path goal theory. Ethical leadership is accountability, transparency, trust, and moral integrity are essential for sustainable and effective governance. Alright? Now, you might be lost right now, but what I'm trying to imply is that within all these theories of good governance that we said, the intersect between the elements which are leadership, followership, and systems. These theories try to help explain the balance. A common denominator among all these theories are the principles. And as I mentioned, principles remain constant regardless of the situation. Alright? Kahit baliktarin mo man ang mundo, 1 plus 1 will always be 2 as a principle of mathematics. Kahit baliktarin mo man ang mundo, the world is flat. According to the laws of, according to the earth as its feature. Principles remain constant. Now, going back to the reference as the elements, yung leadership, followership, and systems as the organs in the organism, we could consider principles as the best conditions that allow an organism to thrive. What are the best conditions that allow us organism to thrive? For example, having number 1, good diet, number 2, good rest, number 3, having good stress management, number 4, having good exercise, and number 5, having good social relationships. Those are principles, hold constant regardless of whatever organism or whatever good governance that you have. So we'll treat principles as constant. Now, paiba-iba yan, but I just narrowed down the 9 into 5. Alright, so let me explain this. Adaptability. Adaptability, we could equate that to responsiveness. Alright. Yun. And according to that, adaptability as a principle to the cognitive flexibility theory, leaders who adjust strategies and enhance decision making and resilience. Another theory that could help explain that is the organization's functions, structural functionalism, where organizations function best when leaders adjust to external and internal changes to remain stability. Collaboration. Okay, we could look that as the participation and consensus oriented, and according to one theory is the social identity theory. Shared group identity boosts teamwork and commitment. Another theory is symbolic interactionalism. Social interactions and shared meaning strengthen teamwork and organizational commitment. Empowerment, we could equate that to equity and inclusiveness, rule of law. Self-determination theory, right? Autonomy and competence increases motivation and productivity. Conflict theory, shifting power from leaders to followers reduces hierarchy, fostering participation in innovation. So these are 3 of the 9, and I just simply narrowed that. And adaptability as a principle of good governance means your governance should be flexible. It's not constant, and it should not stagnate, because we all know that situations change, people also change, and those who try to remain sturdy, try to remain strong, immovable, over time become brittle and then they break. Sabi nga nila, mas okay pa daw na maging flexible kaysa maging malakas, diba? So that's part of good governance, to be adaptable, to know how the situation is going on, and when you need to change, you are not stubborn not to go against it. You are willing enough to be adaptable. And 2 theories that help explain is cognitive flexibility theory, when sa leader pa lang manggagaling, to the way how he makes decision is based on how the situation changes, be it proactive or reactive. Structural functionalism explains that not only a leader who is flexible makes for good governance, even the systems and the followers should also have this mindset of being flexible when the situation changes. Now, to collaboration, as mentioned, right, good governance, hindi kaya gawin ng isang tao yan, regardless kung gaano kagaling man ng isang leader or kung gaano kaingay man ng mga followers. If there is no collaboration, then there's conflict. And if you have a decision that goes from left to right instead of forward, diba? There's indecisiveness. Worse, there's conflict, and worse, there might be sabotage. According to social identity theory, which helps into collaboration, when a group shares a common identity, this boosts teamwork and commitment. Okay? So what are common identities that we have that we could use in good governance? For example, the identity of being a nationalist Filipino, a good Filipino, the identity of a Christian, the identity of a student of Systems Plus, for example. When we hold that social identity to our heart, it guides us. It becomes our North Star. That only helps one person, but it only helps an entire group in deciding. Another theory is the symbolic interactionalism, where every interaction that we do has shared meanings because we have experienced something beforehand before that. And when we experience something, may it be a difficult past or just an easy relaxing moment, these are moments that we get to go back and create some symbol. And remember, in an organization, as part of culture, there are artifacts, there are symbols, there are shared experiences. And symbolic interactionalism describes the common symbols, artifacts, and experiences that society has, which all leads to collaboration. Now, with empowerment, self-determination theory, right? Autonomy and competence. When people are empowered to make decisions not only for themselves but giving them the power that when they decide, this helps the entire community, this helps the other stakeholders, they are more empowered to make the right decision. Sabi nga nila, it's better for you to take action right in the middle of a crisis than to remain idle. Okay, another one is conflict theory, shifting powers from leaders to followers, right? According to conflict theory, the decision making becomes faster and more accounted when leaders allow other people, such as followers, to become both informal leaders or informal leaders in the sense that they are empowered and also become accountable people in their community. Other principles, systems thinking, we could equate that to strategic vision, effectiveness, and efficiency. According to this thought psychology, understanding patterns help leaders make strategic decision making. Social systems theory, organizations are interconnected networks where effective governance depend on managing relationships and structures, as we mentioned a while ago. And another important principle is ethical leadership. Moral development theory states that leaders shape ethical behavior through integrity and social learning. Normative theory explains that societal norms and values shape ethical leadership, reinforcing trust and accountability. Now, the fourth principle, which I summed up, systems thinking, simply says that when followers see a pattern, right, a pattern of decision and outcomes based from the leader, based from the system itself, they are more likely to follow. Kasi they have been conditioned. And if a leader and the system produces this type of result, even though of course medyo sketchy, the means may be sketchy, but the ends is always benefit, followers will remain faithful as long as they know that sometimes they don't understand how the means, pero if they see a pattern of the ends na okay naman pala in the end, mas magkakaroon sila ng faith. And that doesn't come easy because sometimes you have followers who question the decision of the leader. And a leader has to remain steadfast. A system has to remain constant if need necessary. Another theory is the social systems theory. Again, since organizations are interconnected networks, if one part moves, the other moves. And if people could see how one movement of one part affects the other, mas maiintindihan nila yung nature ng galaw. And doesn't mean that they will accept, pero as long as people are provided information and made to contribute, bigay din nila yung mga inputs nila, right? System thinking allow for a more cohesive and more synergistic way of moving one part to another. Ethical leadership, of course, this is very important. According to the moral development theory, leaders shape ethical behaviors through integrity and social learning, and a leader does what he says even though no one is looking. That's an example of integrity. And of course, even though no other people are looking, for a leader, if there is integrity, right, he is guided by his moral principles. Normative theory, societal norms and values shape ethical leadership, and of course, a leader sometimes could also be influenced on how the environment thinks and acts, kasi part na rin ng culture, part na rin ng society. Yes, a leader may have the power to change that, but sometimes if the external is way too influential, it may influence the leader. So it's a good balance, sabi nga sa normative theory. And drastic change, right, does not happen overnight. Okay? Drastic change happen at 1 degree at a time. Sabi nga nila, at 99 degree water starts to boil, at 100 degree water becomes vapor. Just that 1 degree change. At 1 degree water is freezing, at 0 degrees water is cold. But that 1 degree does not happen immediately that changes the environment. There are factors that are needed that would influence that type of change. Both the leader and the environment, right, has to work in tandem for that type of change to happen consistently and with discipline and to be crystallized for good. Okay, so let's go back to week 7. Okay, naka-advance na tayo. Week 2 pa lang tayo. And now we're going back to week 7. If you would recall, these are the challenges in good governance. Now, we could say that there was a fundamental problems in the principles of good governance when it comes to the leadership, responsibility, transparency, trust, and participation. As we mentioned, ito yung mga challenges. Could there have been a problem when it comes to the principle? Kasi remember, principles are the constant that we need to uphold. Alright? Yeah. Could there be a lack in these principles? Adaptability, collaboration, empowerment, systems thinking, and ethical leadership. Okay? Now, there could be, you can say, but if we look back at the challenge, right, and we try to facilitate, try to be more mindful of the principle in regardless to the situation, may nabawasan ba? Mayroon ba tayong kayang idagdag? Okay? If leadership practiced more adaptability, collaboration, empowerment, systems thinking, and ethics, what could have changed? If responsibility reflected more adaptability, collaboration, empowerment, systems thinking, ethical leadership, would it have been a challenge? Now, if transparency prioritized adaptability, collaboration, empowerment, systems thinking, ethical leadership, would it be the same? If trust supported adaptability, collaboration, empowerment, systems thinking, ethical leadership, would that be the same? And lastly, if participation rewarded the practice of adaptability, collaboration, empowerment, systems thinking, ethical leadership, would it be a challenge still? Again, these are ifs, right? But I am assuming, and I am actually confident, not just assuming, that within all these challenges, baka may nawalang principle lang. May nawalang principle lang which affected the elements of good governance, which is leadership, followership, and systems na off-balance sila. So it's very important for us as we try to look at what is good governance. More so, practice good governance ourselves. Ano ba mga prinsipyo na dapat nating sundan? Prinsipyo na para sa atin, prinsipyo para sa mga kapwa, at prinsipyo para sa ating kinabukasan. Alright? So this is just an example, mga best examples. When challenges practice principles, it becomes best examples. If leadership practice more adaptability, collaboration, empowerment, systems thinking, and ethics, the principles. Yeah, an example is Marikina's disasters preparedness. Yeah. Before, again, frequent floods with poor response planning and weak coordination. This was prior Ondoy. And of course, people learn, people learn and change for good. Sometimes it takes a crisis to get out of your comfort, to build character. What is the after? Adapted early warning systems, collaborated with agencies, empowered communities, use systems thinking for urban planning, and maintain ethical disaster response. If leadership and adaptability, the intersect of leadership and adaptability. Okay, another one, if responsibility reflected on adaptability, ano magiging itsura? An example is responsibility and systems thinking. Gawad Kalinga's housing program. Kasi before, informal settlers had access to stable housing and lacked long-term solutions, right? They relocate them, and in the end, they relocate themselves back. Ano yung after? Gawad Kalinga had adapted a community-driven approach, partnered with stakeholders, empowered beneficiaries, applied systems thinking for sustainability, and ensured ethical housing distribution. Yung mga informal settlers na minove nila, they didn't just move it immediately. When they moved it, they tried to make a community. Para itong mga na displaced and now enplaced again, na informal settlers, they actually find a home. And not just a home na physical na bahay, a home within the environment. And you don't do that immediately. There's a systematic way of programming that. Okay? You try to influence society, you try to influence the culture until it influences the families and to the individual until they decide that, hey, this is home. I don't need to leave anymore. Okay? If transparency prioritize adaptability, what it would look like, collaboration, empowerment, systems thinking, and ethics. Yan, Quezon City's business one-stop shop. Before, business registration was slow, believe me, non-transparent, not that I could recall, and prone to corruption. No comment there, and no comment is my comment already. After, they digitized processes, collaborated with agencies, empowered entrepreneurs to streamline systems, and strengthened ethical governance. So simply put, they just became more transparent. And by being more transparent, Quezon City was able to see saan ba yung mga bottleneck areas, saan ba nagkakaroon ng mga anomalies din to investigate. More importantly, saan ba yung mga hold-ups. And by doing so, it not only helped the followers, it also helped the system, and it also helped the leaders, to decide what is the right course of action to improve the processes when it comes to Quezon City. If trust was supported by adaptability, collaboration, empowerment, systems thinking, and ethics, what it would look like? Well, trust and empowerment, an example is Ayala Corporation's sustainable business practices. Kasi before, there was limited corporate social responsibility and weak engagement with communities. Well, this was around the 2000s. Now, CSR, customer social, corporate social responsibility, something that we'll discuss in this course, they shifted to inclusive business model, collaborated with local sectors, empowered SMEs, used systems thinking for sustainability, and reinforced ethical corporate governance. CSR was no longer the corporate's own effort. Now, by adding in other stakeholders, other externalities such as the local government, other businesses, kung hindi na sila makapangsarili lang sa Ayala lang, they incorporated other organizations that would also help, because again, this is not for profit, this is for people. Okay, so hindi na to para sa pera lang, this is for helping other people. And if you could recruit other people who are interested in helping more people, that's very empowering, no? And syempre, hindi lang basta-basta yun, it required trust, because for Ayala, they're opening up their gates for other businesses who maybe they're competitors, but in this case, not to compete with them, but to collaborate with them for the company. Right? So, going back, right, these are the elements of what a good governance is: leadership, systems, and followership, according to McGregor Burns. You will find many other example elements, other archetypes, other profiles of what makes a good governance. Me, I just chose this because this simply explains the balance of good governance. Walang mas higit, walang mas kulang. Balanse ba? Okay? Kailangan may nagli-lead. At kung may nagli-lead, kailangan may sumusunod. At kung may sumusunod, kailangan may sistema. Alright? Now, even though we have these elements, there are things that remain constant, such as adaptability, empowerment, collaboration, systems thinking, and ethical leadership. These are the principles. No? So regardless of whatever type of good governance you're into, public, private, whatever elements you have, kung hindi lang 3 yan, 4 yan, 5, there are things that remain constant. Just as we have showed different types of theories that equates to the balance of these parts. Things that remain constants are very important, because if you don't have empowerment, if you don't have adaptability, if you don't have ethical leadership, systems thinking, and more importantly, if you don't have collaboration, regardless of how fine-tuned the elements are in good governance, it will all fall to ruin. So look at this model. Me, I just made this. It doesn't mean that this is the correct way. This is the way that I think of good governance based on experience and how I would try to govern my own flock as a shepherd. Okay? I hope you have your own mental model, because that will be our goal at the end of this course. For you to be able to create your own mental model. Kasi in the future, I want you to be the governors of your own cities. Doesn't mean a physical city, but the city wherein you let in the good people, and the good people become better. Alright, that's the balance. Thank you very much.